On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate how exhausted you feel right now? Okay, so maybe that's a little bit of a trick question. If you said 1 or higher, then it's time for you to stop. Since when did it become normal to feel so down and out all the time? Sure, some days we may feel like we have more energy than on other days, but saying yes to doing all the things or telling ourselves it's okay to work non-stop because we hashtag love it, it's just not sustainable in the long term. The good news is that if you don't know how to say no, stop, or put your needs before everybody else's, then you're going to love today's episode. You see, I am not only a recovering people pleaser and workaholic myself, but I also have all the papers and medical records from being professionally diagnosed with burnout in 2015. So when it comes to this topic, I am without a doubt an expert. Being 6 years into my own recovery, as well as watching and working with others to help them avoid making similar mistakes, my passion and commitment to burning the 24/7 hustle mentality is at the core of what I do. In today's episode, Business and Burnout, How to Break the Cycle, you're going to find out why, as well as some of my own tips on helping you break the cycle and create a happier and more hashtag successful lifestyle, the balanced way. Hey, I'm Lou, and I'm the host of the Strategize to Monetize podcast. I'm a business strategist, digital marketing coach, and totally obsessed in all things related to harnessing the power of social media to turn side hustles into full-time gigs. In 2016, I left my high-flying corporate career to launch and grow my own online business. Whilst many at times, myself included, thought I was insane, there were a few things I knew for sure. I knew I wanted more from life than working for somebody else, building their multi-million or billion-dollar business. I knew I wanted freedom and flexibility to spend time with family and friends, to travel, to have hobbies and interests outside of working all the time. I knew I didn't want to sacrifice my income. In fact, I wanted to earn more than my 9 to 5, but in less working hours. And I knew I wanted to help and teach e-com business owners how to do that and have the same. This show is dedicated to showing you exactly how I did it and how you can too. The no BS way. Hit subscribe and let's get started. To gain access to my free training, steal my 5-step Facebook selling system, and scale your e-commerce business to 5K months, head to www.fbrevolution.co/masterclass. Hey guys, it's Lou here, of course, your host of the Strategize to Monetize No BS Way to Scale Your E-commerce Business podcast. Now, it has been a hot minute, but after a much needed break of a few weeks off, I'm back in my virtual office and back on the potty airwaves, which I know I've had lots of messages from people over the last few weeks asking me when I was going to be back recording and sharing more podcasts. So to all of you, thank you so much. I love that there are actually people that listen to this. And I really appreciate your eagerness to be able to listen to more hot tips by myself and, of course, my guest speakers. Now, if you don't currently follow any of my social pages, and firstly, you should go find them now. But secondly, you won't actually be across all the reasons why I made a very snap decision to take a break or know about all the exciting changes and I guess new goodies that are coming your way in the coming weeks. works. Now, I'm not going to go into detail around all of the changes. If you want to know more about what these are, then of course go and follow my social pages, or you're always welcome to send me a DM on either Facebook or Instagram, to find out more about what's, kind of up and coming. Just on a small side note, because I can't help myself, we've seen a change in business name. And I guess if you follow my social pages, you'll find more about why I have gone from Louise Stevens Business Coaching to Social Renegades with Louise Stevens, and all of the fun things that is going to be involving moving forward. However, on a completely different topic, because you can find that all out somewhere else, the other reason, or the other things I guess I share on my social pages, is very much related to today's topic. And it's something I am incredibly passionate about. Now, look, on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of my passion for talking about digital marketing and helping business owners, I guess, understand how to use digital platforms, to launch and scale and grow their revenue and their sales and their profits, I would say I'm in about 100. Now, in terms of today's topic, I would say I'm about on that same scale, sitting at 99. I'm, again, very, very passionate about what we're going to be having a bit of a chat about today, which is, of course, business and burnout and how to break the cycle. So, why am I talking about this, and what relation does it have, I guess, in terms of, digital marketing strategies or growing a business online? Now, for a very, in case you don't know much about my background, when I first started my business, so I was working in corporate, I had my dream job. I loved every second of it. I really wasn't one of those people who hated what they did or who they worked for and they had to get out. I was coaching and I was working for an organization that, I loved. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been there for such a long period of time. Now, the challenge for some of that was that I loved it so much that I began working more and more and more. And I guess I really fell into that trap of more hours means I can get more done, which will mean I can have more success in the way that I guess looked like to me. Now, at that point in time, success to me, and still today, wasn't about money. It was about being able to help people, through the products and the services that I had on offer at that point in time. Now, along with my corporate career, I had also started dabbling in a few businesses outside. So I had a couple of side hustles going. They were in the network marketing industry. And then on top of that, I was also working with a coach and a mentor and someone who was my friend at the time and helping them grow their business. So not only did I have a full-time job, but I had two side hustles going and was helping somebody else, I guess, essentially grow their side hustle into a full-time gig. So I was, that's a lot, right? Like my whole world revolved around working. I didn't have kids. I didn't socialize a whole lot. I didn't really have any interest or hobbies. What I loved at that point in time in my life was working. It fueled a fire inside of me. It gave me a purpose. It brought me a lot of internal joy and happiness. But I think we can probably all agree it's a pretty unbalanced and unhealthy way to live life, right? Not to mention the fact that the hours I was putting in to try to juggle all of those working commitments was pretty horrendous. I was working extensive long hours in my corporate job. I was often traveling interstate, for business meetings or to meet with colleagues or leaders within the organization. And then, with all of these side businesses I was involved with, they would often see me coming home or even working while I was traveling. And I'm not afraid to admit this interesting or this very silly mistake. I got to the point where I had so much on my plate that I was literally working 24 hours a day. And I don't say that lightly. I 100% mean it. And even crazily, like I would boast about it, thinking, how cool is it, or how cool am I that I can be working so much and I'm still so awake and I'm still so onto it and I'm still achieving all of the things that I guess, I set out to do. I was literally wearing my workaholic badge front and center, like on my forehead for everybody to see. Now, hindsight is a beautiful thing, of course, but at the time, I didn't have hindsight. Now, fast forward fairly rapidly, I was doing, I was in that pattern for, would say around, kind of 18 months. So over an 18-month period, without me actually realizing it, I was doing a lot of internal damage and putting a lot of pressure on myself, not, I guess, like not only in the work sense, but also really physically and mentally and emotionally. And the result of that, all of that working, was when I decided to take that leap of faith and turn one of my side hustles, or at that point in time, two of my side hustles, into full-time gigs or into a full-time job for myself or business. I then took the opportunity, of course, to allow myself a week or two just to rest and sleep before I, took off again. Now, what I didn't realize that was waiting on the other side of me was my body's way of crashing and burning when it finally had the opportunity to stop. I think we can all relate, when we're feeling a little bit under the weather, we kind of keep on going. But if we go away or we take an extended break, like maybe of a couple of days or a couple of weeks, or if we go away on a holiday, if we have been overdoing it, our body is very quick to turn those flu-like symptoms into something else and force us to stop. And that is exactly what happened to me at that point in time. Only that force to stop wasn't 1 or 2 weeks. Essentially, it has been, I still say I'm recovering from that burnout journey 6 years later. If you've ever experienced burnout, then you will know it is not a beautiful experience. And I guess, as a result of, that experience in my life, I've had and been forced to basically stop and slow down and reflect on my life choices. I have been given the opportunity, I guess, to learn from those. And now I am one of the biggest advocates for work-life balance and protecting our mental and our physical and our emotional and our financial health. Because I have literally learned firsthand that whilst we may think something needs to be done today, right here, right now, as opposed to tomorrow, sometimes, yes, sometimes things do need to be done instantly, but not a whole lot of things instantly over a long period of time, because all that happens is that that pressure mounts up, and over a long period of time, when you do stop, your body and your mind and your spirit is just not going to want to continue anymore. So as you can see, I can talk about that experience for a very long period of time. Now, because I have been, I guess on a recovering burnout, I call myself a recovering workaholic. And as a result of that, one of my symptoms, of course, is recovering from burnout. Because I have been through that experience, it is something that I work with my clients on to ensure that, that they have got a really healthy, balanced lifestyle that works with them and their business, not one or the other, as well as the students in my my program, the FB Revolution. Because I work in the online space and my clients work in the online space, or my students, I of course can see them in the online space when things start when things are going really well, but also when things start escalating and they start dedicating more and more and more time into growing their business, because they're feeling pressures from somewhere else, or because they tell me, but Lou, I guess love it so much, I guess want to keep on going, which I can totally relate to. But we need to have other interests and hobbies and things outside of work as well, right? So because I work in the online world, and every single day, I guess I can see or hear others that are experiencing those same behaviors or patterns that I once did. I guess I feel very obliged to share this part of my story, as well as be able to help break the cycle of business needing, like these on the 24/7 hustle, and this narrative that we are often seeing either in a corporate space, in a person to person space, or in the online space. I am literally a walking physical being who can say that you can take time out to rebalance or to look after yourself, and the world doesn't end overnight. And I'm going to share with you 5 tips soon in terms of some of, the 5 tips I currently, live my life by to achieve more work-life balance and to help avoid that burnout cycle whilst running my own business and working with other business owners to help them grow theirs. And I guess I hope that if you're feeling really exhausted and tired and overwhelmed and pressured, and you feel like you're doing all the things, but you can't stop doing all the things because you don't know how, or because you feel like people are going to judge you, or because you just simply think that the world will stop spinning if you stop spinning. I just really hope that you get a little bit of my message out of this podcast episode. And it forces you to reflect and implement some small changes, even if it's only one small change in your life today to help you break that cycle. It will be the ripple effect can help you continue to break that cycle moving forward, and help those around you break their cycle, because it's not just entrepreneurs or business owners that get stuck in this work mentality. So that's a bit of my background. And on a very quick side note, even though I said I wasn't going to talk about the fun things that were coming in my business, Social Renegades, it's actually the reason why a product line has been launched called Social Renegades, the store, where we have got inspirational merchandise available. Each of them has got a different message around breaking the cycle, or I guess, motivational message to be able to make change in your life. So you'll have to go check that out at some point too. It hasn't officially launched on my social platforms yet, but it will be in the coming weeks. So let's get into these lessons, or these tips. So I guess my tip, now there's no particular order to this because I think that they're all very, very relevant and all fairly equal. So tip number 1 would be to stop, plan, and schedule. So this is relatable to whether you are working part-time, full-time in a job or in your business, or you're, currently full-time looking after kids, or caring for other people, right? This is relevant regardless of what your current professional status is. But I know from experience myself that when you're feeling really overwhelmed and pressured, and you've got a lot to kind of get done, or a lot going on in your life, it can feel very hard to stop, and you feel like you just have to kind of keep on going to keep your head above water. Now, I have been in that same cycle myself, and what I learned was it is totally okay to give yourself permission to stop, whether it be for half a day or a whole day, to catch your breath, to clear your head, to look after you, to do something for yourself for physical, mental, or emotional reasons, and then be able to sit down with a clear mind and start planning and scheduling moving forward. when we don't take that time to stop, we're really coming from a reactive place, right? I kind of think of it like a washing machine. We're just going around and around and around, and we never seem to get to that spin or to that end cycle. But at some point in time, a washing machine cycle has to stop. And it's exactly like us. We also have to stop. So I highly recommend that if you're on that crazy roundabout, then, look at your schedule or your calendar for the next week and just find yourself a gap where you can just take some time out for you. Now, for me, to give you an example of how I do this, so every Monday, it's like, I guess, a bit of an admin day and a planning day for me in my business. So I sit down with myself and I get out a big whiteboard. I used to do this on paper, but every week I was going through a piece of paper and, I'm trying to protect some of the trees, of course. So I purchased a big whiteboard and I drew lines over it. So I've got my 5 days of the working week on there. Now, if you've got quite a lot going on weekends, of course you can make it 7 days. I just happen to know that my weekends revolve around playing golf, and that's pretty much all I do. So I didn't need to put that on the board because it happens pretty much all the time, and any other commitments can just go into my online calendar. But I sit down, so I look at my week, right? So I pull up my calendar on my computer or on my phone, depending on what device I've got available, so I can cross-check everything. I rub anything off my whiteboard that is like a one-off event for the previous week. And I leave like the more scheduled, like the more regular events, if they're relevant, on that whiteboard. So from a business point of view, every Monday I look at my statistics. I ask my clients and my customers or my students what their statistics are. I ask them to set their goals. So and I do my budgeting and update all of my bank statements, etc. So there are some key tasks that I do every single day on a Monday. So I just leave them permanently on my whiteboard. And then what I do is I look at anything else that needs to go on the whiteboard once I've rubbed off, all of those one-off events. Now, where I start is not with my work tasks, but with my tasks, with my personal life tasks. So every single day I'll get up and I'll do some form of exercise before I start work. So that may be, I live in Mount Maunganui in New Zealand, so that might be a walk around the mount. It might be a walk up. I try to walk up twice a week. If I've got Panda, the puppy here, it will be take Panda to the beach. If I've got personal appointments like a haircut or what else is there? Like a doctor's appointment or a dentist or catching up with friends or whatever it might be, I will then put them in at that same time. Now, once I've scheduled in all of my personal commitments or any family commitments or friend commitments, then I add my business commitments. So for me, starting and running my own business was all about lifestyle. My business was to work in with my life, no longer my life around my work. So it seemed logical to me to put my life into my schedule before my work, and then I can work my life around work. I can work my work around my life, or schedule it around my life. So once I've put all of my personal commitments onto my whiteboard, I then go ahead and start scheduling in all of those business commitments that I have for my business and for my clients, and any other potential tasks like recording a podcast, etc. in there. So I guess I start off that way and then I stick to it. So it is quite challenging. I found it very hard at the start to stick to it. But, more time, it got easier and easier. I got to see whether because I'm a very visual person, potentially like you, because it was in front of me on a whiteboard, I could start to see if I had overcommitted on some days or undercommitted, where I could move things around. So I was able to balance my days out a lot easier based on planning and scheduling, and then being able to take the action to tick those items off. So I love ticking boxes, and that gives me the opportunity to tick the box and feel like I've achieved what I set out to do that day, not only for myself and my family and my friends, but also my business. Tip number 2 is whilst we say this word balance, it doesn't exist. Now, what I mean by that is that on my journey of regaining balance and trying to find the perfect balance, I started listening to a lot of podcasts and reading lots of books and talking to a lot of people that I believed had balance in their lives, or could offer insight into maintaining or achieving this balanced lifestyle. Now, I've been going through this journey, I guess, of recovering from exhaustion and burnout, and implementing healthier boundaries into my life, as I mentioned, for about 6 years now. And what I discovered probably about maybe 4.5, 5 years into it, was that I was trying to create everybody else's balanced life, and as my life. Now, my life looks different to everybody else's, so why wouldn't balance look different to me as well? And so I stopped listening to all of the experts and gurus and talking to all of the people to try to find this mythical land of balance. And I started focusing on what balance looked like for me, and thinking about, well, what days of the week do I have more energy compared to less? What commitments take more energy from me? What commitments give me more energy? And I started being very mindful around the different days, different time of year, etc. And then creating my own version of a balanced lifestyle off that. Now, is it perfect for me? Yes, right? Because it's based on what my needs are, and I've chosen it. So therefore I've created it as perfect as I can to what it will do for me. Now, if I gave my schedule or my, version of balanced lifestyle to you, you might look at that and think that that is either not enough or too much, and it looks imbalanced. And that's why it's so important for you to, I guess, to question what balance looks like for you. Start creating that plan and schedule. And then before you create a new one, ask yourself what worked well and what didn't. And does anything need to be adjusted to help you have more balance if you need it? Once you've nailed it on the head, then that's absolutely amazing. And you, I guess, know what your ground zero is, or your go to every single time life hits you over the head and then you start to feel a little unbalanced again. And it will happen. Just because you've created a perfect balanced schedule for this week doesn't mean next week it's going to look the same. We set goals, we take on new challenges. Life comes along and gives us situations which we didn't put in our plans or schedules. So therefore life can become a little bit unbalanced, but we know that that's going to be for a shorter period of time. And then once we have done what we need to do, we can go back to what our our version of balance looked like, to then get back, I guess, that inner balance that we had created for ourselves. Now, my third tip is to create healthy boundaries and say no. So healthy boundaries are things like, creating that plan and that schedule, and, getting to understand what works well in your life and kind of what doesn't. And then once you've created it, stick to it. And, and it's going to be hard saying no to things that you would maybe want to do, or maybe don't want to do, but you feel like you have to say yes to anyway. The beautiful thing about having a schedule or a plan is it makes it much easier to say yes or no to bright and shiny things or people or objects that we would love to be, I guess, doing in our lives. So an example of this would be, for me, I'm always in bed through the week by 10. I try to be asleep by 10. I know that I sleep from roughly 10 p.m. till 6:30 naturally, and that's how I feel, and I guess live my life and perform, in my life at my best. Now, if somebody comes along and says, "Do you want to come out for dinner on Wednesday night?" Now, I then know, and I say, cool, well, what time? Now, they might then say, oh, 8 o'clock. Now, I can then kind of say to myself, oh, look, I'll probably be out till 10. Then I won't get home till 10:30. I probably won't be in bed until maybe 11. I might be in bed asleep by 12. I can then make a very logical and easy decision whether I want to say yes or no to that invitation. You know, sometimes we will, right? And that's totally okay because we still have to have fun. But if we aren't feeling at our greatest already, it will be much easier because we've created that structure, that plan, and those boundaries to then say no because we know that we've made a commitment to ourselves and to activities the next day that we want to make sure that we are feeling really great and filled with energy to be able to do. Tip number 4 is to take breaks when you need to. Listen to your mind and body, and you don't need permission from anybody else to take a break, but from yourself. Now, this one is probably one of my favorites because clearly I never used to take breaks, right? I used to just work and work and work and work and work until I fell over and got to a really, really dark place in my life. But I have, of course, on this journey learned how to take a break. Well, one, I've learned how to stop working and work within normal work hours, which are normal work hours for me. I have learned how to not work on weekends. Shock horror. I have learned how to take naps in the day if I'm tired. And I've also learned how to take, extended breaks, whether it be 3 days, 5 days, 1 week, 1 month, or longer off if I need that. It has been really, really challenging. It's probably been one of the most challenging parts of my journey, and maybe you can relate to this too. Really hard to take those breaks because we've got so much to do, and our vision in life is filled with so many fun, amazing things. And if you're anything like me, I understand that we're not on this planet for a very long time, and we want to make the most out of every day and every moment and every opportunity so that when our time here is, we don't wish that we had done something that we didn't. And so therefore, we live life at a fairly fast pace. It's quite changeable. But we need to take breaks through that for our mental sanity. And this is actually one of the reasons why I've just had an extended break. 2021 has been a really big year. Well, 2020 was a big year. 2021 has been an even bigger year for me personally as well as professionally. And I had a lot going on, leading up to when I decided to take a break. I had a lot of personal stuff going on, and I had a lot of business stuff going on. My plate was very full, and I know myself well enough now to know when I can't take any more onto my plate. And when people try to encourage me to say yes to more, doing more, or what have you, I can get quite frustrated, and I have had to learn how to bite my tongue a little bit. But I was going through quite a lot, good things, but I knew it was taking a lot of energy. I knew it was taking a really big energy investment. And I knew that once things calmed down, I would potentially need to take a bit of a break to be able to rebalance my internal self mentally, and also just, be able to recoup after, a longer period of pressure of making lots of decisions and changes. So whilst, to the outside world, it would have looked like a very, snap decision to have that break. It was actually planned at my end. I just didn't communicate it to every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the world because I don't feel like we should have to. But what was very interesting is that I have now been back in my virtual office for about a week. It's been very interesting how many people have questioned me on my decision to take a break. And why I would do such a thing, it was kind of amusing to me that so many people would care around when I choose to take holidays or not and what that might look like to me. But that's all right because it gave me a great opportunity to talk about this topic. But the purpose, I guess, of that, right, is that you don't need permission from anybody to have a mental health day or to take a holiday, especially if you're your own boss, right? You don't have to submit a leave form to yourself a month in advance to make sure that you can get the leave. We have got, we get to make our own decisions based on the priorities and what we need at that point in time. Every time we take a break, we learn from it. We can put different boundaries in. Maybe we can schedule more breaks throughout the year. We can always reflect back on the situation and, whether it was a planned holiday or it was a mental health holiday. But my tip number 4 is to take the break when you need it, because as I said at the start of this, the alternative is that your body will tell you when you're going to take that break for you. And your mind will tell you too. And that is not a positive experience. Look, I've ticked that box enough for all of us. So let me tell you that right now. And my tip number 5 is, ask for help. So one of my biggest weaknesses, or something I'm trying to turn into a bit of a strength, is asking for help. You may be like me, and you probably are. You're a pretty strong, independent, driven, motivated, competent person. If you've got your own business, you are likely to be a solo business owner. So you've learned how to wear all of the hats. We all go through experiences in life that teach us how to wear all of the hats in life as well. But it doesn't have to be that lonely, and it doesn't have to be that isolated, and it doesn't have to be that hard. And whilst I am definitely not perfect at this, and I might be like 1 out of 10 on the scale of learning how to do this, it is probably one reminder or one tip that I'm constantly working on with my life and also in my business of, where can I ask for help today? Do I need help, and where can I ask for it? Now, does that mean, that I need to, ask a friend to come over and help me fix something or whatever it could be because I don't know how to do it myself? It could be, right? I don't know how to pump up my back left tire at the moment. So I've been asking a couple of my male friends if they can help me because I don't know how to do it. So therefore, I have to ask for help. Otherwise, not so great things are going to happen. And it's exactly the same in business. So where are we struggling? Are we running out of time? Do we need to make more money? Do we want to grow our business, but we don't know how? Like, where is it in our professional lives that we also need to ask for help? For me, I got very good at doing things very quickly so that I created more time for myself. And as a result, that, of course, brought more money into my business because I kept it all instead of paying other people to help me. But again, that set off that burnout roundabout, right? Because I was doing all the things at rapid pace, putting huge pressure on myself emotionally and mentally. And I also got to a point a couple of years ago where my business couldn't grow anymore because I didn't have the energy for it, and I also didn't have the personal resources for it. And what I mean by that was other people calling upon their expertise or their time to help me get to that next place. That is something that I have again sat there over the last month looking at in my business on how do I now create more time moving into 2021. 2021 has been a really big year of growth. But for me to be able to get to that next place whilst continuing to have a lifestyle, playing sports, being my friends and family, I have learned from past experience I can't do all that by myself. So I have to look at what experts I can bring in to assist me. And start outsourcing. And that can be really scary when you're a business owner because you don't want to part with all of that hard-earned money. But that's just a money mindset in order to kind of flip. And you can say to yourself, but what if I could help more people, sell more products, be more present, be more consistent, create more in my business, whether it be a digital or a marketing or a physical product. what if I could do more of all of the things that I love if I could invest in paying somebody to do some of the things that I don't love? Or if you're in a service-based business, work with you to be able to, I guess, split clients based on different areas of expertise and time availability, etc. And then find somebody within the budget that you've got in order to invest, and then start actually letting go. And as you start trusting somebody else in your business, and I know that's hard because our businesses are like our babies, but once we find the right people, it's like the support we receive, the encouragement, that person to or people to bounce different ideas off in order to create whatever it is that we're working on, but also be able to help us free up our time to be able to create more, sell more, work with more people. It in return continues to grow our business and our profits. It can't not, right? If we've got amazing resources at our fingertips and we're investing our own time and energy, as well as being able to call on others who are experts in that space, it can't help but not help us move forward to that next place in life and in business. And whilst it is very scary to be able to do, you just have to back yourself and trust that it's going to help you get to that next phase in your life and in your business. So, guys, that is today's episode. So, just to quickly wrap up, as I mentioned at the start, I'm so incredibly passionate about talking about, balance and protecting our mental and our emotional and our physical and our financial health, and across our personal lives and professional lives. I'm very open about my experience of overworking and how miserable I was because I'd created a life solely around working, despite the purpose I thought it was bringing to me and the happiness it wasn't. And just how over a long period of time, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable with our energy, and it's not sustainable with our internal well-being. I worked and my whole life centered around that so much, despite the fact that I thought it was the thing that I loved the most. But I did so much of that thing I loved the most, that I woke up one day and started questioning why I was even alive. So it's not healthy, and I beg anybody to really just look at the way that they balance and prioritize different things in their world. I've shared, 5 different tips on, I could talk about this all day long, but I've shared 5 different tips to, I guess, help you, create more balance for yourself if that's what you need. And ultimately, how to ditch this mentality of 24/7 hustle equaling success. It's not. The less hours we can work, more freedom, more time with the people that we love, more financial wealth. That to me is success, not working all the time for not being able to spend time or energy or money doing the things that we love with the people that we love. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode, Business and Burnout and How to Break the Cycle. I trust that it has brought some insight into your world. Any questions, please reach out. Any feedback, again, come and drop me a message on my social channels. I love hearing from people. Otherwise, I look forward to talking to you on the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode. If you've loved it, please go ahead and hit subscribe so you are notified when new episodes go live. Whilst you're there, I'd love it if you could leave me a review too. Then head on over to www.fbrevolution.co/masterclass, where you can gain instant access to my free and super juicy training, steal my 5-step Facebook selling system, and scale your e-commerce business to 5K months. See you on the next episode.